Hey, what's going on, y'all? I'm gonna show you how to make Toosii samples inspired by his brand new album. First, I'm starting off with the LA Custom C7 Wash from Keyscape, and all I'm doing is I'm turning off this reverb. Then I'm also trying to make the velocity sensitivity a lot more present. The thing about Toosii melodies that's a lot different from, say, a Rod Wave type sample or maybe some other Pain artist is that his chord progressions and melodies are typically a lot slower. So a Rod Wave melody will have a lot more stuff going on. The chord progressions are a little bit quicker, but a Toosii song, usually the chord progressions are a lot longer. You can hear this on like Favorite Song, Rule Number 1, things like that, where the chord progression is a lot slower and it's not really changing chords super often. So for this sample, I'm in E major, and as you can see, the chord progression, all it really is I'm going from E major to B major to C sharp minor. And then I'm doing something here where, although I have a D sharp in the bass, this is really just a B sharp major 7 chord, and that's going to go into an E major, going into a C sharp minor, and then it's ending on a B sharp major. One thing that I notice a lot of Pain producers do on these albums is that they don't have a lot of notes in their chords. So as you can see here, the only chord that I have a bunch of notes in is really the starting E major chord right here. As you can see on this B major, I'm fleshing this one out where I'm inverting the D sharp up. This one I'm inverting the E up. Even here, you know, these don't really have a bunch of notes packed into each other because you want the chords to be very subtle. By having these chords really spread out where the notes are not really close to each other, it's going to give it a lot more airy, kind of floaty sensation. And this will make it where the chords don't sound like they're changing so harshly from one to another. Then for the top melody, keep it super simple. This isn't one of those Rod Wave beats where you need to do these really long runs going from up to down to up, where you're adding in a bunch of filler notes, a lot of grace notes that aren't in the scale. You want to keep this super simple. The Toosii sample is almost on like pop songs, and a lot of pop songs and love songs aren't going to be having a bunch of grace notes or anything. You really want to keep it really simple, but still make it catchy. For the top melody, I'm really just finding random notes that go together in the scale, and then I'm adding some random notes in between to kind of fill them out. One of the main melodies I'm doing here is the E, F sharp to B. I'm doing this multiple times throughout the sample, because this will be like kind of a melodic line that you keep on going to. So I'm really just doing this. Basically, the entirety of my melody is relying on those few notes. All you have to do to find these little melodies is just play out on a piano, sing things in your mind, because you don't need to come up with a bunch of different short little melodic lines for these samples. You just need to find 1 or 2 really good melodic ideas that you can keep on relying on, and you can change octaves and put them throughout the sample. For the effects, I kind of got these off of a lot of Pain YouTubers, exclusive, Uncle Cameron, Prod by Cam maybe, and then another new dude, I forget his name, might be Mootsie. I'll drop all the photos for this stuff right on screen. But really all I'm using is a parametric EQ, Fruity Flanger, which I'm turning down a bunch, and then the sauce is Effect Rack. Basically all you're doing is you're going to Choral Choir, which is under guitar right here. You're selecting that, and all this is doing is it adds a delay that's basically an octave up, and you turn it down a bunch. I have the mix rack on only 5%, and this will make it so that there's a really floaty sensation. Next, I have a pad which I use in basically every single one of my Pain melodies. It's called Pad Sweetwater, and it sounds like this. It's a super sine wavy, smooth sound, and all I'm doing is putting basically the same effects I did on the other one, except I'm cutting out the bass a lot more. Then I'm adding in a texture from my man Prod by Infinite. I got in his brand new pack, Gatekeep Sounds, but all this does is add some background birds. And then arguably the most important part of these samples is getting vocals. Toosii, of course, talks a lot about heartbreak, things like that, so you want to find sad vocals, sad songs that kind of talk about, you know, breakups, whatever, things like that.
Young when the night is over. Don't call me up, I'm already
As you can see, all I'm doing is pitching up the sound by about 200 cents, which gives it a little more of that pain sound. And then I'm adding auto pan, which will just pan it from left to right. It's really not doing too much. And EQ, all I'm doing is going here, going to radio, and that gives that sound. And then I'm cutting out the lows even more to make sure there's none of that in there. Fruity compressor to make sure that the sounds are kind of compressed and that they're not going all over the place dynamically. And then I have a reverb, really high mix, put it in concert hall, make it a little more modern because the older sound, usually it's a little more dull. I want this one to be a little bit higher. And then I'm going to the playlist and I'm just chopping it up to make it on beat. Last, I have a sub bass in my bank that I did with Proud by Infinite called Moogie Betts. And all that's doing is following the bass notes of the chord progression. As you can see, E major, B major, C sharp minor, on and on and on. And that's really all that's doing. Then the master track doesn't really have anything crazy on it. Just has soft clipper, multiband, limiter. It's just the master track I use for everything that I make.